Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be the position 5 tier list for patch 7.33c, and as always, I get my information from the Trends tab, Dota Buff, Dota 2 Pro Tracker, all the pro games, kind of mash that all together, give my take based on pubs. It's supposed to be kind of like a mid to above average pub tier list, not for like 10k or Immortal, but just kind of what everyone should think about in their pubs. And obviously the good players establish the meta, but then it trickles down, and I kind of take that into consideration and give my take. So that's how I arrive at this list. Now, without further ado, let's just jump into the S tier. So S tier right now, Venomancer. I've kind of already covered Venomancer in the 4 position and in the 5 position, or I mean in the off lane. And this hero is just like really good with all these like kind of self-sustaining, aggressive, really independent carries. You can really pair this hero with one of those carries and you can just dominate the lane. Again, another universal hero, very good, but also the fact that, like I said, you're not just self-sacrificing into like just hitting your ult and that's all you do. You're not reliant on dominating the lane and like using Plague Ward to win. You can still use Venomous Scale to be super annoying. You're very hard to deal with, and since regen and like healing is not in the meta as much anymore, the healing supports are not as good. Greaves got nerfed. I think this hero just is a lot better. It's at a very good spot right now. I don't see a lot of it in my bracket, to be honest, but I think obviously when the win rate's really high and the pros are picking it, and the pros are picking it a lot, and it's winning a lot, I mean, that says something. I don't see a lot of it, and I still think it's a pretty easy hero to play. I don't see any reason why lower MMRs haven't really capitalized on the hero. I don't think there's any like big skill gap that there's a reason that it shouldn't be picked. I think the changes to it just made it a lot better. Like I said in the offlane video, you can just do a lot of your damage and be annoying from a distance. And the amount of damage this spell does is just like, you can't underestimate how much it does. It's kind of insane. So that's Venomancer. Techies, it's just a broken hero. It's a universal hero. We talked about it in the 4 position, all the same reasons. This does a stun now. This hero's doing insane amounts of damage. It has actual good right-click damage now from so far range. You're just right-clicking people down. Insane damage from the 5 position. And again, with pairing it with like a Slark or a Monkey King or whatever, you're stunning people, you're slowing them, you're like clicking them down. I mean, you can just give your core, your carry, an insane game with this hero. And then you scale super well as well. Pugna, another one that is like, was an A 4 position, but it's not as much about damage. So this is all about the save, the heal, the team fight. You know, that's why this hero is really good. And I think a lot of this meta is kind of just about like jumping on heroes, skirmishing, fighting, and blowing people up. And because of that, this guy's basically the straight up counter to that. Where a lot of other heals in the game, since they've been nerfed, this is like the one heal that is able to counter all that other stuff. Like it's all those other heals like weren't enough. It was just like a little bit of heal, a little bit of sustain, and that's not enough. Where this is just like, okay, you are initiating on this one guy and I'm going to save him and then we're turning the fight. And I think that's why this hero's been a lot better. And then Undying, like Undying will just straight up win 1v2 in lane. And you just give your, like if you pair this, like again, with a Slark or with any hero that's aggressive as a carry, the lane's just like over. You just win the lane. And it's really good against these strength offlaners that are very good right now, like Legion. And you can 1v2 the lane, and then if you have a good carry, like I said, you're just dominating, and that's mainly why. There's nothing super special about any of these heroes. I think these 2 heroes got changes that made them better, and then these 2 heroes are just very good because of their heal, because of their team fight, and everything else that they're doing. Yeah, that's pretty much what is happening here in the 5 position. In the higher MMRs, this is kind of, and general MMR, this is what the statistics bear out. I'm not like a huge fan of any one of these heroes. I mean, Techies is obviously really good. I'm not like a huge big player, as you can see from probably my level on them. I don't play them a lot. And 5 position is one of those, you can like play almost like anything in a 5 position, to be honest. And a lot of the 5 position heroes now, like the typical 5 positions, just aren't as popular because I feel like everyone's trying to play like the damage dealing 5 positions or 4 positions in the 5 position too, because like why not just get your farm, be effective, and hey, that it is what it is. That is it's a viable strategy, and there's so much more farm and everything on the map now that it makes sense. So again, we have Bounty Hunter. I don't think it's as good as a 5 as it is as a 4, but it's still pretty good. I mean, you can still get away with it now with the stun and everything. With the way the hero works, it's like you do have a stun. This is actually a stunning hero now, which is interesting. So just kind of like changes the dynamic of how to think about Bounty Hunter. Mirana, same exact thing as 4 position. Honestly, I talked about her there. It's exactly the same. Nothing crazy special. I don't see a lot of it as 5, but it does work. SD, again, I don't see a ton of this hero. I think it's just not that popular, but when it is picked up, and it's picked up in the pros pretty often, it is pretty good. I mean, it does counter a lot of these illusion heroes really well. Yeah, there's just some things about the hero that are very good, although I don't see it very much, so I can't comment too much on that, because I feel like nobody under like 6k MMR plays this hero, like legitimately. Phoenix can play as a 5, kind of the same, very good like team fighting ultimate kind of hero. And the thing about a hero like Phoenix, or even like Warlock, who's actually getting better and kind of going up on the list, is that as from the 5 position, even if you're not stunning, like you just, even though you have this ultimate that is high cooldown and stuff like that, the fact that you just have such high impact with that ultimate and with the saves and everything in the team fight, just you can be self-sacrificial in that way, and it's not as big of a deal that your ultimate's like on cooldown. So whereas from the 4 position with all those other damage dealers, it just feels bad. Oracle now is like just good ever since they changed how the spells work. So, or the one spell at least. The one spell, I forget the names of this hero spell. I never play this hero really. But the one spell used to, if you put it on an enemy, it would disarm them, and also, but they wouldn't take any damage, like magical damage. If you put it on your ally, it did the same exact thing. So you had to like figure out when to use it. Now, it just, if you put it on the enemy, it disarms them, but they still take magical damage. If you put it on your ally, they don't take any magical damage, but they're not disarmed. So it's just like, it takes that skill ceiling, or not even a skill ceiling, it just makes the hero straight up better. You don't even have to be good anymore at like when to press the spell. It's just like obvious. Like either press it on the guy that you need to disarm, or press it on your hero that's getting gone on, and that's it. And that just makes the hero so much better. And the hero's also a good laner, pretty good like burst heal. That's the same thing with this. Like the healing is bad now, so these like burst healers or like save a guy are really good. Same thing with Omni. Omni's similar in that way. Omni has been buffed a little bit, and obviously I don't see him very much in my bracket, because I don't think he's like that kind of like carrying from the 5 position kind of hero, because he doesn't have a stun. But against certain lineups that really want to like right click you, like a Faceless Void or whatever, unless he buys Nullifier, like this hero can be very, very good. With an Omni, he can snowball, honestly. Like if you have an Omni and you're snowballing the game and you're skirmishing a lot, this hero's really good with that, because it just feels like it can be so hard to go on people if there's an Omni behind them. Same thing with Oracle, like same thing with Pugna, same thing with Undyne. Like it's so hard to fight into these skirmish heroes. Silencer, I think they just improved the spells a bunch with the hero. The hero is still obviously an intelligence hero, so it's not just like it's universal. But it does a lot of damage. The silence is always going to be good, and with the skirmishing, you can just never count that out with the ultimate. Chen, surprisingly, is decent, so I don't know anything about Chen. I never played Chen. Chen just either seems to be broken or bad, and for whatever reason, I guess it's pretty good in high MMRs. But I mean, I put it up here because it's kind of like a freaking cheese hero or like a high MMR hero, and I guess the win rate's pretty good, but it's just like not picked that much. It's not a popular Chen meta, but I mean, I guess it's decent. I don't know, whatever. You figure that out on your own. I mean, nobody plays this hero under like 6k MMR, so who cares, honestly. Spirit Breaker, better as a 4, better as probably an offlaner, but still very good as a 5. Like for the same reasons it's good, it's just good, buffed in every way. Abaddon, a good saver, buffed in the sense that it is a universal hero. I feel like universal heroes are just good now, so it's not like the best support ever, but it is still a very viable and decent support. It doesn't do anything crazy different though. And then Bat Rider is just a broken hero, so this hero's good. Probably not great as a 5, but like you can still play it as a 5 and get away with it. That's just how Bat works now, with all the spells being better. Next we have Clinks. I think Clinks as a 5 is just bad. Like, I mean, the win rate is pretty good because it is a broken hero. It is good in terms of the support, and you do damage, but again, this is kind of like risky picking this as a 5, which is why it's on the B tier and not like the A or the S. It's because it's just better as a 4, because 4 is the kind of position where you're like, oh yeah, this guy can go greedy, but 5, not really. Like you don't really love when this hero's a 5. I mean, it can work, don't get me wrong, but it's just not the best. CM is just like food for every other hero. I mean, she's okay, her spells are good, her kit is decent, but she's food. That's the problem. The 4 position is almost always going to just like feed on you, and I think that's the big risk that you're taking when you pick a CM. But otherwise, like if you aren't food and you do manage to survive and you're good with the positioning, CM can be pretty decent. And with the skirmishing, obviously the mana regen does help. Jakiro, just okay, not the best. Again, is sort of food, but at least offers you the stun. It's like there are some heroes that they offer some stun, they offer some control, and they're like okay, middle of the pack, and that's Jakiro. Dazzle is in the middle because against certain matchups, he is broken just because his Q is insane. Like, if you are able to keep the lane as a 5 position, if you're able to keep the lane in front of your tower, and they have like generally not fast heroes that can't stun you or whatever, and can't stop you from clicking them, like you can just straight up 1v2 a lane with this hero with your Q. if they can't really turn on you. Like if you isolate the support like next to the rune or, you know, pulling the small camp or whatever, you can just like solo kill them. That's how crazy this hero is, and that's why it's like decent. That's honestly, I feel like, why it's good. And then saving people from a Legion duel, all that kind of stuff can be pretty decent as well. But it is a healing support, so it's just kind of like lower on the list. Treant is okay, has a good ultimate, does all the same things Treant does, but it's just middle of the road, stunning hero. But because it like can dominate lanes sometimes, it's pretty good. And can heal towers, do all the same things it always does, which is great. But I don't like love it. I don't see a lot of it. Bane is just okay again, can definitely save people and help in situations where there's a Legion duel or a Chronosphere, all that kind of stuff that I've been saying the same thing with like Dazzle and everything, but it's still just like not the best. It's just like middle of the road. But again, I put some of these heroes here because their win rates say that they should be up here, and I'm not like, I don't see them a lot, so I'm not going to say that that's wrong, because if their win rate is like decent and they are being picked by the pros and they're having successful games with them, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, if I never see it, that's just the problem. I can't really like judge it for what it is, but that's why it's like middle of the road. And then Warlock is getting better. I do see this a little bit, and I think at lower MMRs it is better. Now that his slow is actually like spawns those little minions and stuff like that, that like can attack people and stuff. It just, this hero can feel really, really broken and really good. Like that slow is so quick now to just start, where before it was like it took forever. Like I feel like you put it down and then it was like 10 years later and they were finally slowed. So now with that, plus the little minion dudes that spawn around, and then this hero can always like carry in the late game with his ultimate, and he's like really good to pair with a self-sustaining carry, because now they can be even more aggressive. So that's pretty good from the 5 position. So Warlock is on the up and up, which is a very good thing, because he's just kind of been dead for a long time. Next we have C tier. All these heroes are just like below average or average. We never see Dawnbreaker anymore, but she's like viable as a 5, I guess. I mean, you could pick her and it's like okay, but it just doesn't really work that well. Snapfire is one of my favorite supports. I still really like Snapfire. I think she is a very good support. I think you can pick her anywhere, but in any position, pretty much, other than like carry. But I just, you know, her win rate's not great. She isn't the best, but I still think she's probably better personally. But that's just because I like her, and I like her as a support fundamentally, mainly because you can get farm with this hero. So like you have 2 pretty much farming spells, which I think really helps the hero overall. So even though the hero's win rate isn't the best, and deserves to be down here compared to a lot of these other heroes, in terms of like team fighting and laning and all that kind of stuff, I think it is very good for pubs, and it's one that I would consider playing. Enchantress, you can play this hero and like be decent with the right clicks from the 5 position. If you're going to play it, you probably want to play at 5, but it's not great. Disruptor, I've seen this hero do a lot better than the win rate says it should be. So like it's another one that's Snapfire. I would still pick Disruptor like up here, probably even above some of these other heroes I don't see very much, but the win rate is pretty bad. It's just that it can have a lot of effectiveness in team fighting in pubs. If you're like lower MMR, if you get that Ags and that kind of stuff, you can just dominate games. I can see it doing really well. But again, some of these heroes like Disruptor, like Lich. Lich is another one. His shard is really good. His ultimate can be very good. He can dominate games. He can be very effective in the laning stage. But this guy can be food. He can be food. A lot of these heroes can be food to some of these 4 positions, some of these other, you know, better heroes right now. Clockwork, I don't like him as a 5. I think he's just better as a 4. It just feels weird as a 5. I don't like it as much. I feel like the amount of times your cog is going to like grief your carry is like very high. And there's very few times that you're having a ranged, I mean, unless it's like a Medusa, this patch, you're not having very many ranged carries. So your cogs are just going to be grief. Venge, just decent. A stunning hero, but like low on the list. That's pretty much it. Like a stunner. Another one that like should be a core, but just isn't, so still played as a support sometimes. AA, I think, is like, it's just at a weird spot. I mean, I think it should be better than it is, but again, it's food. It's like, what you have this hero do feels good, like you want to stop a lot of regen, like a Slark, or like a lot of these heroes that have sustain or lifesteal. I think there's a lot of ways that they can be good. The shard is also really good now, I think, because it's like making you stun people with your ultimate. But the problem is, it's like, that's just not enough, I think, to overcome the hero's weaknesses, like a CM, like a Disruptor, like a Lich. You're just food, man. Like, you just can't show on the map, ever, or you're just, like, dead. Like, there's just, like, a Clinks or a Bounty running around and just, like, insta-jibs you, like, in a second. Elder Titan, again, okay, never see him. Keep It Alight, just paired with Medusa, basically, or, like, another hero that has, you know, you can, like, double spell and is really good. And that's kind of why they're up here. But otherwise, yeah, shouldn't pick them too much. D tier. Winter Wyvern's like more of a core now, being a universal hero. Shadow Shaman's just bad. Food and like has to stand there while he's like channeling. Just he's gonna die instantly. Ogre just not great overall. All these kind of like typical supports that are all about like stunning and shit. It's just they're really bad. Like Lion, Tusk fell off a cliff. Marcy just not like as a 5. Dawnbreaker and Marcy they've kind of fallen off, and now they're at just like this really low point. Gyro is not a 5, just very bad as a 5. Do not pick him as a 5. Witch Doctor like is actually decent. Like he's one of these heroes that you can play at lower MMRs. His win rate is atrocious. And he's like pretty bad and can be food, but like if you get a good start, if you know how to play him, if your positioning is really good, you can stomp with him. But otherwise, he just feels like sometimes he can feel just dog shit because you just like walk up and just like, oh, I'm instantly dead. Like I can't do anything. And also dust counters him because what you want to do is you want to go in, use your spells and like glimmer cape yourself, but now you're just like standing under dust, so you're just screwed. Grimstroke, bad hero. You can still play him, but nah, he's pretty bad. Io, bad hero again, just like overall, just a bad hero. And then Medusa, like don't play it as a 5, man. Like it's just, that's probably the worst position Medusa's in now is 5. And like people have solved it. Just do not play this hero as a 5. I honestly, I'm putting Medusa over here. Don't play this hero as a 5. It's an F tier. And then on F tier, you're like Wind Ranger, a core, like maybe a 4 if you want to do damage. But this hero is like a universal core hero. Ricky is a core hero now. This hero is not a support. This hero is not a 5, especially since like the changes. And then Pudge has never been a 5. Do not play this hero 5. I do not care what anyone says. Every once in a while, you'll get like 1 out of every 20 games, like a random game, and some guy will pick like Pudge 5 and they'll be like, no, it's good. Trust me, it's good. And you're just like, shut up, dude. Pudge has never been a 5, will never be a 5, is garbage at 5. Like, just stop. Stop trying to force this Pudge 5 into a thing. It's just never going to be that, so give it up, please. Anyway, those heroes just like aren't 5 positions, so don't pick them. So that is my 5 position support tier list. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.